All right, well, welcome back. Today is Wednesday. Markets aren't doing a whole heck of a lot. We've got NVIDIA earnings after hours tonight. NVIDIA is like 8% of the S&P 500, so it's pretty important. Remember, it was NVIDIA earnings in 2023 where, they basically announced, hey, AI is here and it's here in a big way. That started everything. Massive expectations. So we'll see. PCE is Friday, Fed's preferred inflation measure. That's going to be an important number. Monday's a holiday, end of summer. You probably got a lot of people out. So kind of not a lot going on. S&P still kind of flatlining. No real reason to go down, no real reason to go up. As usual, the action is beneath the surface. Mention one name here. Ondas Holdings, a drone stock. We've been talking about this on the newsletter since below 2. It's now 539. I do have an order in to take a little bit of profit off the table just because I was saying I was up like 350% on my calls here. And pigs tend to get slaughtered. But so far so good. I think Jeremy, you had a comment on this.
Can I stop you real quick? So you put in an order, you use limit orders or do you put market orders in or both?
No. I use limit orders on
I
options.
see. Okay, I see. All right.
Most brokerages, in fact, will make you use limit orders for options. They won't do,
I see.
basic cash orders.
Got
Yeah, this thing has got another dollar to go before it hits its halfway back to its previous high, or reversion target, I like to call it. And I was putting my arm over my back, trying not to break my elbow, because that was a good call. But that happens once in a while. There's a few other underdogs we keep track of, and in today's show, I think we're going to be talking about lithium. There's maybe one I might mention. I'm going to dig into it a little bit more as we're speaking. As for the general market, yeah, it's waiting for NVIDIA to do its thing, and my favorite meme is like they took a drawing of Atlas holding up the world and replaced the head with NVIDIA's logo. That's pretty much what it feels like these days. So everybody's anticipating NVIDIA's earnings tonight, and we'll just kind of play the market by then. We'll see what happens.
all right.
One other name I'm going to mention. It was kind of the stock of the day in the newsletter is Trump Media and Technology, DJT. Full disclaimer, we have a 2X on this DJTU. They just announced a big crypto deal yesterday. This is a name that we're involved in some other ways as well that'll come out shortly. They're pivoting massively into asset management and the whole crypto thing. As I said in the newsletter, I've never seen any evidence that conservatives invest according to their values. But this could get interesting if I'm wrong about that. So, remains to be seen.
Interesting good or interesting bad, or
interesting good. They're moving mad. They're launching a bunch of America First ETFs.
I see.
They're going to be trying to launch a bunch of crypto ETFs. They're also doing crypto treasury. They're going into a lot of areas, and they've got name recognition. There are, I think, 250 digital asset treasury companies out there, and the only one you've ever heard of is MicroStrategy. These guys, have name recognition that I would put up against, Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, plus all they're doing on the asset management side. Again, remains to be seen whether, they'll attract conservative money.
Got it. Okay. All right, got it. All right, so we have Steve Hanson on today. He is from Surface Metals. They are into lithium mining. They're right next door to Albemarle's mine, right, in Clayton Valley, right? So Matt talks about Albemarle. We've had a couple of newsletters about lithium this year, very positive. Stocks have been on a roll. He's also into gold mining. We talked about that a little bit here. Steve, how you doing? Welcome to the show. What do you have
great.
to say, man?
Yeah, nice to be here today. Thanks. And
Welcome.
also Matthew and Jeremy, real pleasure to be here, and always enjoy hearing about what you guys are up to these days in the market. So again, a pleasure to be here.
Right.
He's a fan. All right.
All right. Wow. All right.
Nice to meet you.
What you got?
But besides Jeremy's mom, it's our only other fan.
You know.
Exactly, dude. All right, so Matt,
One at a time. You got to keep adding fans. You guys.
Yeah, no.
There you go.
So let's look at Albemarle's chart. What does that tell you, Steve?
Well, wait, hold on. So Albemarle
This is
has
the
a
preferred.
Right.
So I have been in Albemarle and SQM. I think I'm out of both of them right now. I do own the Albemarle preferred. When I saw lithium, probably back in June or so, starting to take off a little bit, I chose to go the preferred route. Those of you who know kind of the heat formula, which we talk about, and kind of my permanent portfolio 2.0 using the heat formula, I believe you should have a preferred sleeve. So that's why I did the preferred, but I'll put up a chart of it. I mean, the stock looks the same.
So what's going on there, Steve?
Well, it's an interesting time, and lithium has been a hot topic and a controversial topic, depending upon who you talk to, over the last decade. And there's been these waves of interest in lithium from the investment community. But the reality is the world really runs on lithium. When you think about technology, we kind of forget that in our daily lives, you pick up your cell phone, your laptop, your power tool, your e-bike. It's not just hybrids and electric vehicles that we always talk about. It's all these things that, our vacuum, whatever it may be, anything cordless is running on a lithium battery. And the world has bet on that technology. All the factories have been built based on the lithium battery. There's new R&D going into lithium. And what we're going to see here is the lithium battery is going to get smaller and faster. No different than the chip market. Obviously, what we've seen is that computer processing has gotten smaller, faster. That's what we're going to see in the lithium side of things. And demand continues to grow. So, one of the biggest areas that people don't really talk about, all we hear about is EVs. Well, guess what? One of the biggest growth markets is actually in battery storage. So we have, energy, challenges around the world. We have brownouts. We have, nighttime use and daytime use. We have, solar farms and windmills. How do we store energy and manage energy? So battery farms, no different than you see data farms, massive areas in the middle of nowhere that are managing data. You have the same thing where you're using energy storage. So there's some real big growth sectors for lithium here. And again, it's gone through various cycles. We are in a down cycle right now, kind of for the midterm with lithium prices. And then in recent weeks, we've seen a resurgence, and there's a few kind of catalysts that have happened in the last few weeks that have resulted in lithium stocks start to run again. So, again, we hit all-time highs about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, or thereabouts, where lithium hit an all-time high as a commodity. We've been back down close to the bottom, and now we're seeing this resurgence come back in the commodity. And as a result, the guys that are producing the most lithium in the world, you've got Albemarle up here, which is one of the largest, not the largest producer of lithium in the world. Their stock has rallied in recent days because of a few catalysts that have happened around the world.
What are they?
Well, some of the major processing facilities and even some of the larger mines in the world are located in China. So one of the major mines shut down in early August.
Right.
There were some environmental regulation issues, and you don't really know all the story of what's going on there, why it was shut down. And then obviously there's some processing facilities. So again, there's been some shutdowns. Some believe that they're running out of actual material. And that's one of the reasons. Some of the higher grade material may have been mined and they're getting into some low grade material. There's a whole bunch of different theories as to what's gone on. Could it be regulatory? Could it be environmental? Could it be actual supply? But again, we've seen those shutdowns, and as a result, we've seen the commodity bounce and stocks go as well. So again, we're still in that bottom area of pricing. We're still in that lower area. So a real good opportunity for investors to take a look at lithium and lithium stocks again, if you believe that the world is going to continue to run on batteries, and absolutely it's going to. So again, an interesting time to be in the lithium sector.
All right. So, like,
Pull up the
go ahead.
commodity. So keep
So-
going.
So Matt has talked about like SQM, which is the Chilean mining company. I mean, any thoughts on Chile? Or we've actually posted some stuff on Chile, and just throwing that out here real quick.
Well, you know, what many people don't know is most of the world's lithium comes from 4 countries. It comes from China, Australia, Chile, and Argentina. And really the reason why I founded my company 5 years ago is my belief is that we cannot rely on foreign nations on this commodity. We're building battery factories. We have infrastructure and technology in the United States and in North America where we need to have the raw material domestically. Chile has gone through a whole bunch of upheaval. The state or the government in Chile wants to own assets or majority of assets. So royalty structures and ownership has changed down there. China has an insatiable appetite for this commodity and obviously isn't interested in supplying lithium to anyone. They'll supply batteries, but and they're happy if we want to buy batteries from them, but they're not interested in certainly providing us lithium. And Australia, as an exporter, sends most of their lithium to Southeast Asia. So here we are. Here we are where we're a massive user and there's a huge need for lithium, yet there's only a couple places in North America that actually produce the commodity. So again, we need to ramp up our mining infrastructure, our processing infrastructure. We've got lithium in the ground. I mean, that's not an issue. We have lithium in North America and in the United States. There are some regions of the US, in particular Nevada, where lithium is located. So, we can supply domestically all this need all across the United States if we start working on breaking through the bureaucracies and red tape that happen obviously within this industry.
Got it.
Is there any sense that this administration is going to do that, or have they been trying to do that?
Yeah, and it's not even just this administration. I mean, we even saw it in the previous administration. And what that says to me is that it's not just politics that we're talking about here. It is absolute need. Everyone with 2 cents recognizes that, well, hold on here. We better be sufficient here, self-sufficient here for our economic security, for our national security, for a whole bunch of things. We better get our act together and start taking a closer look at supply domestically. And that's why I founded my business. My belief is that over the long term, there's going to be a continued need for this commodity. I focused on regions where lithium exists. And I think whether you're on both sides of the fence politically, you're seeing further investment. Government is taking massive amounts of money and providing construction loans, technology loans to some of the larger providers. So there are incentives for companies to continue to advance their projects. We're seeing support at not just the federal level, but at the state level and even down to the municipal level. So there is a groundswell that's happening as people get educated, understanding what we need to do here within the industry. When I started my company, there was maybe 40 to 50 lithium companies in the world. As the commodity, ramped up a couple years ago, we saw a massive race to continue to access assets. And, it maybe grew to 250 companies around the world. And then we had a crash in the commodity, and now we've gone back to kind of a manageable number. There's probably about 60 relevant lithium companies now globally. And so I think actually that gives the opportunity for an investor to take a look at the players that are here. There are majors that have been long-term producers, but there are some medium and smaller companies that give a huge opportunity for where maybe you can put your dollars on something that might be a little bit riskier, obviously, but also have some great upside as demand continues to increase.
So who would be, especially working in this country, who would be some of those smaller companies?
What's
Well,
your
you know,
symbol? You have a symbol, right? You guys trade, yeah?
yeah, we trade in the U.S. under SURMF,
Oh,
R.
SURMF, Surface
There you are.
Metals. We trade in Canada under SUR. We are an explorer and a developer.
You're up 14%, probably because of all the people watching this live.
Yes.
There you
Your mom's
go.
putting this in
There
her
you go.
Jeremy's mom just bought 100 calls.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well,
I doubt you're going to find calls.
No, not optionable, but
Yeah.
well, I've spent 30 years in the resource sector. I've not just been in mining, but I've also been in oil and gas and alternative energy in my career. And I've worked in all 4 continents, from Mongolia to Kenya to Argentina to Mexico to throughout North America. I've been CEO of a number of companies, on boards and advisor. I've also had 3 equity funds for a period of time when I was on the money management side of things. But my passion is taking early stage companies and growing them and create value for shareholders. I work for the shareholders. That, at the end of the day, that's who I work for. I want to create value for shareholders over time. And so my goal here with Surface Metals is obviously to continue to not only provide a supply to the U.S. market, but to continue to advance our assets. So if you think about the larger companies in the U.S., Albemarle obviously is the giant globally, and they have a project in southwestern Nevada. It's an area called Clayton Valley. And what people may not know is they've been producing lithium there since 1966. And they are the only producer of lithium in the United States. And they're produced from salt water, from brine that is deep within that valley. Lithium is the lightest metal on Earth. It floats, surprisingly enough. And so that's why you find it not just in hard rock, you find it in clay, you find it in water, underground rivers and pools of water that are underground in these basins. And so Albemarle has been producing lithium from brine. About 1,200 feet down is the core area where they've been producing it from, and they've been producing it from 1966. We are their neighbor, their direct neighbor to the north, where my project is. I can throw a baseball over the berm and hit their evaporation ponds. That's how close I am with my project. And we're in that same ancient lake bed that's being driven from the Smoky Mountains to the north. And again, it's continually replacing that underground river and water that's down there. And that's why Albemarle has been producing since 1966. So again, it's kind of shocking to think that there's only one place that's been producing lithium for that long, yet we depend on it so greatly. So there's a world-class project in northern Nevada called it's run by a company called Lithium Americas. You may have talked about that on your show.
LAC, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and again, they started as a very small company, a penny stock, we'll call them, and obviously have grown to being a New York Stock Exchange company with a great asset. And they've gone through many years of work developing that asset and ultimately getting permitting. They're backed by the U.S. government. They have offtakes with some of the biggest players in the industry, and they're hoping to have shovel in the ground to start construction here in the next probably 12 months or so. So they're a near-term producer and are working to hopefully supply the U.S. market with lithium.
Kind of like this monthly chart.
Yeah, same. I was just thinking that it's got a nice setup. Reversion trade all over it.
Yeah, so as you see here, you're following in somewhat the commodity price and what's been happening in the lithium kind of wave. You'll see there's multiple waves here that have taken place dating back to the 2017, 2018 year. The commodity spiked significantly through that 2020 to 2022, and then came back. But I think we're flattening out here, and it's not like demand hasn't changed. Demand has continued. The world continues to run on lithium with lithium batteries. Yes, EV demand may not be as high as people predicted, or we're still working on infrastructure, on hybrids and EVs and so forth. But the reality is there's a lot of other areas over and above EVs and hybrids where lithium demand continues to increase. So we still need increased supply. And so really in this sort of down area for stocks, whether it be majors or juniors like me, I think there's an opportunity for investors who say, hey, I can invest in a semiconductor or technology company, or maybe I can invest in a battery company, but let's look at the core commodity as an opportunity here as an investor. And again, there's only a handful of lithium companies that really are worth investing in. And again, it's a great opportunity at these areas. Again, I'm not an investment advisor. I'm the CEO and founder of a lithium company, so I may have some biases here, but I certainly believe over the long term that this commodity is going to continue to be of interest to investors.
I live in.
Let me ask you this. So we do a lot in like gold mining stocks and oil drilling stocks. And in those areas, I really like the royalty companies because I think there are some advantages to investing in companies that just deal with the royalties and don't have the expense of doing all the drilling. Does such a thing exist in lithium?
There is actually. There is a company called Lithium Royalty Corp, LRC. And they, in fact, are a shareholder and investor in my company.
Oh, my goodness.
Coincidentally.
Oh.
And, we certainly are on the gold side. There's been massive success on the gold royalty side for investing. Some of the gold royalty stocks have had some of their biggest runs in recent months. Obviously, with gold running to $3,500 an ounce, record prices for gold, the royalty companies have done very, very well. The gold industry is quite a mature industry. Obviously, there's gold ETFs and gold royalty companies and majors and medium-sized producers. Lithium is still in those early stages. We're not. There's not a whole bunch of lithium ETFs. There's not a whole bunch of lithium royalty companies. But that's going to change over time. I mean, we still are in the early stages of this lithium cycle and adoption. So, I think we're going to see some of the larger firms launch lithium investment products, lithium mutual funds, whatever it may be, much like you've seen in other commodity areas, whether it be oil and gas or gold or copper or others or polymetallics. I think you're going to see that happen on the lithium side of things. So again, Lithium Royalty Corp is a publicly traded company. They own a handful of royalties. And frankly, the biggest challenge right now is there aren't that many producers globally. And so, there's some majors, but then medium companies, but there are still companies coming on stream. So, it's not like other commodities, but that's going to change. And so Lithium Royalty not only owns companies that are producing, they own companies that are near-term producing, and then they own a very small handful of juniors with my company being one of them.
So explain the royalty angle, Matt. I don't follow that one. What does that mean exactly?
It's like a dividend, but better.
LITRF. So, yeah, I mean, what they're doing is they're not doing the mining. They're just buying, the stream of income from it. So they don't have all the risk. They don't have all the expense. So like Franco-Nevada is one that I own on the gold side, and they're a royalty company. TPL is one I own on the oil side.
And how do they give companies, they invest in companies to get a royalty stream with, like, they invest cash, or do they own the land, or how does that work?
No. They don't own anything except for the stream of income.
Right, I see.
So typically, if I can add to what Matthew's saying, is that typically, on the commodity side, whether it be gold or silver or lithium in our case, typically the ownership can range from 0.5% to 3% is probably the highest. Oil and gas, sometimes you'll see up to 5%, but typical, let's call it 2%. 2% is a typical royalty in precious metals and in lithium. And so what will happen is a royalty company will do due diligence and look at a variety of companies, whether they be a near-term producer or existing producer, and say, listen, I'm going to give you $50 million for a 2% royalty forever on your company. And then, what they'll do is they will have producers that are continuing to give them cash flow and streams, and usually investors maybe get a part of that cash flow. In many cases, royalty companies have an income stream to the investor or a dividend, and it's about getting cash flow. And so a royalty company may say, listen, this company's going to be producing gold in 2 years. I'm going to buy a royalty now at X price. I'm going to invest $10 million in this company, and I'm going to have the right to own a 2% royalty because I know they're going to be in production in 2 years, and I'm going to start getting that cash flow. So, a company may end up with 150 different royalty investments in their portfolio.
Oh my gosh.
Some may be producing, some may be near-term producing, and some may have a 5 or 10 year horizon, or maybe even never produce. But that's kind of the speculation that asset manager will take a look at in potentially getting cash flow over time. And in many cases, the company that is taking the investment might have a right to buy back some of that royalty. That's always a possibility. Is they may say, hey, you buy a 2% royalty, but guess what? I'm going to buy 1% of that for $100 million down the road. And so that's another way where there's an opportunity for exchange of capital. So to simplify it, the royalty companies for investors, you end up getting usually a stream of income or dividend that is being paid out of the royalty company. And it's very unusual for a royalty company to buy into a junior company. But for those that have the right assets and maybe are run by the right management team and have an opportunity in the future, the likelihood of success, again, that are trying to de-risk their projects, it can happen. And so again, we were very fortunate to get an investment from LRC, and they liked our projects, they liked us, and we're still a long way off from producing, but hopefully one way we'll be able to do that.
All right. So Matt, we have a newsletter. It's called the H.E.A.T 4 million newsletter. It's attached to this podcast. Matt wrote something about lithium a month or two ago. Is pretty positive on it. I'm going to ask you a question. So we also talk about second order thinking here, which in this case would be kind of like, picks and axes or whatever, So Matt said in his report, the real choke point isn't just mining, it's processing, right? Can you talk about that a little bit, Steve?
Yeah, it's all fine to get lithium out of the ground, but obviously it needs to be processed into a product that can be used by battery factories. So think about a refinery when it comes to oil and gas. Think about that. There's offtakes from multiple producers. So there might be a refinery in Houston that ultimately is processing that core commodity and then selling it to the open market. So no different than that model. There's a processing part of the equation that has to happen with lithium. And so that's the other end of it, is that we need to build processing facilities. There's talk about processing facilities being built in the western states. There's talk about it being built down in the Arkansas and Carolina areas where there's known lithium. There's talk right now about a processing facility being built in Quebec to serve the Eastern Canadian market. So there does need to be that whole upstream and downstream side of needs to be invested into as well.
Any investable companies that you know of that are just processing? It doesn't work like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, most of the processing right now actually is being done in China, and so that's really the area that needs investment too and growth, and it is happening. It is happening. There is work being done on that, but off the top of my head, I can't think of a particular company that would be appropriate for just processing.
Got it.
So yeah, we had someone on a few weeks back talking about rare earth materials, and they mentioned that being the big issue. We could dig it up here, but all of the processing right now is in China. which is a problem. Does lithium, I mean, when I think of rare earth materials, is lithium technically in that basket, or is it different?
One of the, rare earths obviously are needed and extremely important for a number of sectors. The processing is quite challenged depending upon which rare earth or group of rare earths you're talking about. Lithium processing, we don't face those same challenges. You can get other minerals or materials that may be a challenge to get out, but the processing's fairly straightforward.
Got
it. For hard rock and for brine. For clays, getting lithium from clay has something that is not been done greatly around the world, and that's a new area of technology processing that's been worked on. Hundreds of millions of dollars have gone into that, so that's a new area of processing, is getting lithium from clays. But lithium from brine and lithium from hard rock has been done for decades, and is fairly straightforward.
Okay, but still all being done in China right now until we bring plants online.
Mostly. That's right.
So, Steve, you've said positive things about the U.S. Defense Production Act, which, is good policy for lithium, I believe. Trump's Matt talks about, kind of favorite industries of Trump. Trump's taking a stake in Intel. We had guests on talking about government contracts for space. Like, what's your experienced CEO, et cetera, what's your take on, government, Trump, U.S. defense, all that in your business and all these other businesses?
Well, I do try to leave politics out of, and I have my own opinions, obviously, but I do try to leave politics out of it, in that I don't know how governments are going to change, and I have to be prepared to work with any government. Again, Biden's administration had made strong efforts to provide capital and make changes to regulations to ensure that we had a domestic supply of lithium. There's actually a white paper that came out during the Biden administration that related to where do we need to invest and put people and energy and resources in to make sure we have the supply chain for lithium. And so that was an important white paper that came out that looked at mining, that looked at processing, that looked at battery factories, that looked at end use, it looked at all those areas. And that white paper, which came out from the Department of Energy, actually was the basis of the start of finally government saying, we can't be late for this party here. We got to get going here. We got to play catch up, actually. And so the Trump administration has just followed up on that. And I think that there is more of a probably pro-mining, pro-resource orientation to the Trump administration. I'm hoping that the red tape and the bureaucracy that other administrations have had, the layers of government to get mining permits happening, is going to change. We still need to use best practices. We still need to make sure that we take care of the environment and water and all those kind of things. But we got to get rid of the red tape. We got to fast track these opportunities for the security of the nation, really. And so I think the Trump administration is going to be better at trying to get rid of some of that red tape. But really, it all started in the previous administration as well. So, I think, and that's really talks about the desperation we are right now in making sure we have a domestic supply. And
right. Yeah. So, I mean, it strikes me that if Besant, I think, said Trump's going to take more stakes, or, the government's going to take stakes in more businesses, industries, et cetera. It strikes me that this would be one. I don't know. That's just my thought.
Well, we talked about Nevada. We talked about that I'm near one of the only producers in North America and their neighbor. And we talked about Lithium Americas. They're a great project, and they're about to go under construction here soon. Well, right next door to me, not very far away, is an Australian company, and they have a hard rock, or actually a sedimentary claystone project for lithium. It's not very far from our brine project. It's literally, a 10-15 minute drive, not very far away, maybe half-hour drive, but not very far away. And I'm their neighbor on that project as well. And the government has committed over $980 million in loans to that project as it goes into construction in the future. So they already have committed almost $1 billion to that project. And that project has off-takes with Toyota, Ford, and Panasonic. They already have buyers for all of their lithium already for the future from Toyota, Ford, and Panasonic. So, Tesla has battery factories in Nevada. Panasonic has battery factories in Nevada. The auto manufacturers are throughout the US. So, we're seeing the recognition by the players in the industry. We got to get ahead of this. We got to get ahead of the curve. And so you're seeing capital flow from institutions, from strategics, the majors flowing into good projects. And certainly we'll see the investment community continue to follow.
Yeah, it's interesting from an overall investment standpoint. I mean, what we're seeing, as we do this podcast and talk to people in different industries, is there are so many areas we're behind China, but it seems like there is now a push to fix that. So we had a drone guy on a while back, and you think, all right, well, we got to be the leader in drones. He's like, well, no, we're like way behind China. Shipbuilding, coal, lithium, processing, all of this stuff seems to me is going to open up the floodgates on a lot of different, investable areas. I mean, we saw ONDS, that's a drone company. We see what Albemarle's doing. Hopefully what your company is going to be doing. I think from an investment standpoint, we are living in a very interesting and target-rich environment, and which is why I think you got to look beyond the S&P 500. So just my 2 cents.
Sure, Matthew. Well, we went from a grassroots exploration company, and we made a major discovery, in the first couple of years of me founding the company, and we have an estimated 300,000 tons of lithium in brine in our resource at our project area, and we're hoping one day we're going to be able to get that out, and so we have a resource. We have an estimated amount of lithium under the ground right next to one of the largest producers in the world that's been producing since 1966. So lithium is there, and we just need to continue to advocate as an industry and continue to push all areas of government. And again, the strategics are there. The major companies of the world, the auto manufacturers, the major technology companies, whether it be Samsung or Panasonic or Apple or whoever it may be, they need lithium. They're looking at supply chain all the time. I was at the largest lithium conference in the world. It was in Nevada in June, and everybody was there, all the players, and they are looking for good projects in areas where they can invest their capital. So it's an interesting time. We're in a bit of a downward trough here, and I think that creates actually an opportunity. If you're a bit of a contrarian and you believe that this area is going to grow, and it is going to continue to grow, I think it creates a great opportunity.
And you're preaching to the choir. I would much rather buy something when it's low and nobody is thinking about it than be buying it when everybody is buying it. And then we talk about this a lot, your exit liquidity for all the smart people.
Yep.
We prefer not to be that.
Right. So I'm going to just kind of go back a sec. So just so you guys know, I live in LA. We have brownouts here from time to time. When energy's out and you have a battery, your stuff stays on. So I think there's a huge need for batteries in homes. I mean, so that's number one. I also have a Tesla. So I'd love that. But I'm going to move forward. So we talk about, other, second order type thinking. What is the deal with battery recycling? Do you have any thoughts on that? Is that a real biz? And are there publicly traded names in the battery recycling biz?
Yeah, and certainly there was a stream at the conference I was at, a panel that was talking about battery recycling. It is a topic that comes up occasionally. We need to continue to obviously take care of the planet to some degree, to a great degree, and part of that is recycling. But there's also a part where some lithium can be taken out of batteries that are recycled and reused. So, it reduces the amount of supply that's needed. So not only are we making sure that we're not just dumping these batteries into the ocean or wherever it may be, that we're actually recycling them, processing the waste material. And then ultimately there is a small portion of that lithium that can be reused as well. Tens of millions of dollars have gone into the industry. There are a few players that are out there that are continuing to try to advance that. It's really about the economics. Can it be done where it doesn't have to be funded from an outside third party? Is there a business in it? Is really the challenge. Can we get scale where the amount of lithium that we're getting out of those batteries and reusing, or maybe even the byproducts, plastics or maybe some metal, can we recycle that where it actually becomes a business? And that's where like anything, you're trying to become more efficient and cost effective. And the technology is there to do it. It's really the economics. Can we get to a point where we're able to do it, without having third party funding?
Got it. I see. So, Jay, you got anything?
Couple second order thoughts, and then I'll mention another Nevada-based company in a moment. Two other components. One's nickel. Nickel's hard to move. It's such a widely used commodity. It's not necessarily a focus for lithium use, but graphite is. There is a graphite mine. I'm trying to remember the name of the company. I think the ticker's EAF, if I'm not mistaken. It's a penny stock and a half, but. Long story short, you need graphite to make batteries, and there's a certain need for a purity of graphite, known as graphene, that's a little bit more in demand, a little more rare. So that's a good second order thought. Eventually, that looks like one of the focuses. And then there's another company I was looking at, and I mentioned it before the call, and you might look it up actually. Company I've been keeping a close eye on, I do have a small position in, is Dragonfly Energy. And Patrick, you mentioned having a battery to keep your lights on during a brownout. That's kind of one of their specialties. They build battery farms and technology for battery farms. They're also doing research in solid state lithium batteries, as well as partnering with like RV manufacturers to get some money flowing into the coffers, so to speak, to build this company a little bit more. So it's looking like a decent underdog for growth. They've got some hurdles in the way, but so far I'm kind of liking the chart, and it's just one of my many underdogs. Some of the best trades I've made have been on underdogs. Even when LAC was kind of trading at $2 in 2020, I rode that up to $8 and some change. That was a pretty nice swing.
And you can do it again.
Absolutely.
That's funny. All right, so I'm going to just switch gears, Steve. You're also in the gold biz, gold mining, right? One of my favorite topics. I love this show, Gold Rush Parker. You watch all this. It's the greatest show ever, trust me. So I love gold mining. They feel like I know a lot about it. But having said that, miners lately have really been out moving gold. Like gold's up, 30%. Barrick Mining's up 60. Anglo-Clo's up 70. Newmont's up 90. Kinross is up 200. Whatever, et cetera, or 100%, excuse me. So any thoughts there, Matt, Steve? How are you feeling on the gold biz, Steve?
Well, I feel really good, and someone may say, "Well, you founded your company based on lithium," and I certainly did. I as I mentioned previously, I've worked in a number of different commodities over the course of my career. We've seen gold trade through its highs, 3,500 US. And gold stocks running here, as well as the ETFs and the royalty companies. My board and I last year, we were trying to take a look. Hey, listen, if lithium is kind of in this trough right now, obviously we believe in it long term, medium to long term. Maybe we should start looking at other opportunities. And I looked at many over the course of last fall and the winter, looking at other commodities in not just in the region but throughout the U.S. My belief again is to focus on the domestic market and be a domestic supplier. And something came across my desk that was it was just such a great opportunity that I had a hard time not passing on it. And this is called the Cimarron project, and I acquired this in April of this year. It's a part of the Walker Lane trend, which is a major gold trend throughout Nevada, long history dating back to the late 1800s. Just north of our project, Kinross poured its 15 millionth ounce of gold at Round Mountain. That's about 20 miles to the north of our project. We're surrounded by historical gold mines, and there's actually a historical gold mine on our project and that we're named after. And the workings are all still there. There's chutes and adits and rusty equipment and buildings that are there from an old mine that happened dating back to the early 1900s. But what most interested me about this project was Newmont, the major gold company, as well as a company called Echo Bay, which got ultimately bought by Kinross. They were back there doing extensive work on this project in the late 80s and early 90s when gold was around $300 an ounce. And they were there for a reason. They were there because there was exceptional grade on surface in samples, and they drilled some incredible gold intercepts through their drill programs. But that was gold prices were down, and that was a different time. And my guess is if gold was at $3,500, they would still be there on this project. So I had the opportunity to acquire it in April. We're very excited about the prospects. We're analyzing all the historical data. Again, we've got some high grade on surface, high grade intercepts in some of the previous drilling. My geological team is putting that into a 3D model right now. There's new technology that we can use to analyze that historical data. And then we're going to commence an exploration program here sometime in the near future once that data is analyzed. There is an estimated resource on the project. It's non-43-101 compliant, meaning it doesn't meet current standards, but there is an estimated resource that previous companies had put in there. It's about 50,000 ounces. It's not huge, but what it does tell us is there's gold there. There's gold in the system. There's gold that's been drilled into. We're not starting from scratch here, and this is a great opportunity for us to continue to advance into another commodity. So we have gold, that's obviously screaming as a commodity. Stocks are going nuts. We have this gold opportunity it's one of the most exciting opportunities I've seen in my 30 years. It's called the Cimarron project, and it's part of Surface Metals. And then we have this base of exceptional lithium projects that we have in our portfolio that are next to existing mines or mines going into construction. So investors have this two-pronged opportunity here to invest in the upside of our gold project, and then this base of lithium projects that really is for the long term, we believe is going to be very good.
Yeah, and again, anyone who's familiar with our permanent portfolio 2.0, we recommend you should have gold. You should have some gold miners. I've got a mix of gold miners and again, royalty companies, also some silver. There's also, obviously, we run bags, which 100% crypto, 100% precious metals as well. But yeah, big believer. I would not go out right if you don't have gold now. I wouldn't go out right now and buy it, but I'd certainly look for dips to get in. Down 99 basis points on gold miners doesn't really qualify. GLD's kind of flatlined here, but certainly something I think if you're a buy and hold investor, you want to have.
I'm going to take you back to the watch list. If you remember back in February of 24 last year, I mentioned SSR mining.
Oh yeah.
For buying it at $4.50 a share, I mean, it's trading today, $18.25. I love a comeback king, and they had a bad accident over in Turkey. One of their dams broke and did some damage.
Oh.
But the sometimes if you find the right dip and if you read between the lines, whenever there's some sort of news like that, you can find a company that's basically undervalued, and that's kind of what we did there. They also have been purchasing some properties in Nevada, and I think that there was a couple they purchased in Canada recently as well. And they're just, all about growth. So every once in a while, if you keep your eyes peeled for an underdog to come back, you get a dead cat bounce like that, and that was a great trade, and then it became a great investment. They're out there.
All right, I'm gonna ask one more question to you, Steve, and it's kind of to Matt also as well. So the gold's like around 3,500 now, right? So pretty high. So can all these miners make money at 3,500? And are there costs out of the ground? I mean, what's the formula on that? I mean, if you were, I guess the question I'm trying to ask is there a price point where this is not good anymore? I don't know the real question, but like, who's the best miner? Let's say we get to 4,000. Who's the most leverage on the next move? It's a multifaceted question.
Good question.
Yeah, good question.
Is it good? I thought it was confusing, so thank you.
Giving you props.
Yeah.
Steve's just being polite, Pat.
Thanks.
Gold miner.
I saw everyone's eyes glaze over. Like, I'm like, oh,
I mean,
shit.
the higher the price goes up, the better it is for the gold miners.
Yeah, but if your cost per ground, if your cost of getting out of the ground is 1,000, you're really not as leveraged at 3,500 as, let's say, you are the company whose cost is getting it out at 3,500, right? Per se, or is that not true?
Right, but if your cost is getting it out at 3,500, you're probably not in business because gold hasn't been at 3,500 the whole time.
Yeah, but let's say it gets to 4,000, your stock's going to start screaming now because, like, finally, you're out of it. You're
still in business, but I'll let Steve answer.
Yeah, but that whole idea, Steve. Any thoughts on that?
Well, usually when somebody answers good question, which is what I answered, it's they have a hard time answering the question.
Yep.
So I'll try my best here.
My bad. I trust you. I take the heat on that one.
I mean, I think that the majors, obviously inflation has affected everybody, whether it be workers or equipment or, fuel, all those things that it takes into getting resources out of the ground. It's affected everybody. But there were miners that their costs were running between, if it's an open pit situation or something, that are running between 800 and 1,800 an ounce, right? So at 3,500, they're doing really, really well. We saw gold obviously trade in the 1,200 to 1,800 range for quite some time, and miners were still making some money. But what happens here when we see this commodity go up is lower grade material can be produced that couldn't be produced here. So if you think about mining a ton of rock, and that rock is worth $2,000, well, when gold's at 1,200, you don't want to be mining that rock. You just don't. And
right.
So what happens is many of these companies have resources that are in the ground that you got to get to a certain price before that rock actually you can make a profit on. So in many cases, you're mining the higher grade material, the higher valued rock. And now as prices go up, you actually have more material that you can actually mine just because you've got an opportunity to make money. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does to me. Not Matt, though.
Yeah. So I think that this is the first time we've seen a run like this in gold for a very, 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 very long time. And so the miners they've been waiting for this day for a long time.
Right.
And they are making very, very good money, even with inflation and costs going up. They're making very good money on their existing resources. But what it means is some of the peripheral players, lower grade projects that might have question marks around their feasibility, are now at these prices. The economics look very good. So if we go back to 2,000 gold, well, that's a different story. But for now, you want to get it out of the ground as fast as you can and make as much money as you can.
Final question. So I told you I watch Gold Rush. They say they're running out of mineable land in the Yukon and the Gold Rush all the time. Is it such that we can actually run out of, mineable land for gold and, quote unquote, the world? Or are we ever going to run out of gold? Or is that even realistic?
Yeah, I mean, surface mining is quite different, and I think what you've seen in some of those shows is they're mining lower grade material, so you need bigger machinery, more water. The grade gets lower to get the same number of ounces out. I think I'm generalizing here, but I think that's some things that have happened. But, you know, like anything, new technology is allowing us to be more efficient. You know, there's a lot of world still to explore. You know, for me as a CEO of a gold and lithium company, Surface Metals, you know, I've got to look at do I want to work in a jungle? Do I want to work at the top of a mountain? You know, what are the costs of getting those commodities out? You know, am I going to be in Greenland or Antarctica or maybe on an asteroid that's you know, hurtling towards Earth? Is that where I'm going to get my commodity? No, I want to be in places where it's easy to get to. And Nevada has been named the #1 mining jurisdiction in the world. It flip-flops with Australia, but what's great about Nevada as a place to work is you got infrastructure, you got power, you got technology. Our team can sleep in their own beds at night. You know, you got hotels and restaurants, and if I need a hammer, I can go to a Walmart, you know, or a Home Depot. So there's huge advantages to be in this industry in the United States. You know, there's a lot of commodities in the world that have not been found yet, and new technology is helping us do that, become more efficient as well. But you know, you want to be in a place where it's easier to access. It reduces costs. It de-risks projects, and that's why we're in Nevada.
Right.
And there's places where there's lots of deposits that are, you know, politically controlled to where they're not allowed to be mined. So that's something to take into consideration as well. I know the Pebble project has been on the mine for a long time now. And then, you know, no one looks at places like the Philippines. The Philippines is full of gold in the ground. And there's just, you know, different things you can get to. But with Nevada, yeah, everything aligns where it's plentiful, easy to get at, and easy enough to be worth grade. And then, you know, as you said, all the support that you have locally there is incredible.
For sure.
So are you gonna let us come out on a Tuttle Vegas Clayton Valley field trip, sponsored by Matt?
You know,
paid for by Matt.
That I was going to ask that too.
I mean, we'll see if they do the ETF conference in Vegas again next year.
We'll be out there. We'll be out there. All
Well,
right. So
what I didn't plan this, but conveniently, my gold project is about an hour and a half drive from my two lithium projects. And again, I did not plan that. It just was convenient. So if you do come out, we can visit both. And I think you'll find Clayton Valley interesting. It's an ancient lake bed. And obviously Albemarle's been there since 1966. We're their neighbor. And then you want to go through some old gold mine workings, you know, you'll feel like you know, an old miner from the late 1800s. We'll take you there and show you.
I'll bring my pan and my sluice box, my man. Where do we find? Can we pull you up? Where do we find him, Matt? Where do we find you at surfacemetals.com? Is that right?
Surfacemetals.com. That's right. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
As I said, I think I put a link to the site on the description as well.
All right.
No one ever looks
there
at
it.
There it is.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I love the idea of lithium and gold.
Right.
So
right. Do you have 4-wheelers we can drive around too, or do we have to rent those?
So you'll see that those pictures of the well, I call it a salt lake or a playa. Valley, that's Clayton Valley, and where you see the ATVs going across. So it's unbelievably flat, and that's where you see that there's underground rivers and pools of water where the lithium is located. And so
got it.
I'll just drive us out there in my lifted Sequoia. We got this.
I want to have like an ATV race with Matt and Jeremy on the Clayton Valley Plains, man. All right.
I pass. I know too many people who have gotten very injured doing that.
All right. All right. So anything else, guys? Great episode. Thank you, Steve. Very informative, actually. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, now you're an expert on lithium.
Yes.
There you go. You can say that.
Yeah.
Matthew, Pat, Jeremy, a real pleasure, and look forward to talking to you guys again, and enjoy the rest of your summer.
See you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.